You sent me a really interesting building here. It's the communist headquarters in France.
Yeah, that's what it was. Some Brazilian architect, this communist Brazilian architect, Oscar
Meyer, you say? Okay,
Niemeyer, not Meyer, Niemeyer.
Niemeyer. Yeah.
I think he's full on Brazilian. There's nothing to that, as far as I can tell.
Hmm.
But yeah, he built this communist headquarters in Paris. It was. So I saw this thread pop up on Twitter, um, sort of praising the architecture and what I and we'll post a link to the thread and to the article related to this, so you can take a look for yourself. Go look and then come listen to what we have to say. But I personally like it a lot. I think it looks really good. What do you think?
Hit and miss. There's certain elements I really like, and it's very cool. It's definitely got an aesthetic. It's. I think someone in the top comments said it looks like a Tarkovsky movie, and yeah, it does. That's really cool. However, it is kind of ugly, I think, but interesting at least. So I'm torn. I'm torn.
Yeah, see, so this is something that was built through the 70s. I think it was finally completed in 1980. But there's an element of like a futurism to it, right? Where you have it almost looks like something you'd see in like Star Wars or Star not even like the Star Wars movies, but like in a game like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Or the original Star Trek, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that. So there's that element, and I think it does it pretty well. It does that, and it looks cool. And I do like they talk about the author, they're quoting the architect, and he talks about he likes the sensual curves, um, representing women. I think that's kind of I like the curves. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be like, oh yeah, it's this womanly archetype like that. That's kind of I don't know. I'm not sure that's exactly what's being represented there. I think he's missing it, but I do like a lot of the curve, the kind of flow of the building. Um,
What do you think of that
now the out
carpet?
sorry,
What do you think of that carpet?
it's cool. I think it fits well. I think the brown chairs around kind of I don't know. I feel like they could have done with something different there, but overall it's good. I think the worst aspect is the exterior. Um, it's not in the thread, but the some pictures of the exterior, like it's just like a big windowed building. It's kind of got this the auditorium is built into the ground and has this dome coming out. That's kind of cool, but then it's just this like glass building behind it.
Yeah.
This big rectangle.
I'm actually more alarmed that the communists have such a big headquarters in France.
Well, I think what it says in the article is this guy didn't get paid to do it. He did it by himself. Like he designed the entire building free of charge because he said, "I believe in these higher ideals. I want to uh, put my talents to use for the cause I believe in," which is I honestly that's admirable. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he was exiled or he exiled himself from Brazil when a right wing party got into power there, and that's why he ended up in Paris. But I think Paris in the 60s and 70s, well, that was a pretty decent sized communist scene. So it does make sense why they have something like that.
Hmm. Well, I'd like to storm it. I'd be storming it. I'd be like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Well, okay, well, here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing, because I don't think I had you read the article, but the article actually says there was a lot of like big right wingers, or maybe not like right wing in our sense, but in the general sense, capitalist types and maybe even fascistic types that would go in there and like take pictures and use it as a shoot, um, and sort of try and subvert it. And then like there's a there's a lot to this actually. Um, the first thing I found interesting that I think the author said uh, basically, he was criticized, or people, right wingers are kind of trying to criticize him, and this is even in the Twitter thread. There's like right wingers jumping in there, kind of like these just almost grug brain takes, where it's like, oh, well, you have a nice building, you can't be communist. Um, communists putting all this money into this. Well, that's not like, well, that just shows you that capitalism, like, that kind of right winger tact.
Yeah.
But he actually had an interesting response to these. He's saying uh, there are people calling him out for serving bourgeois ends, and he says architecture does not change anything. Um, he said architecture is always on the side of the wealthy. That's just reality.
Of course.
He was, again, following his principles. The important thing was that was to believe that beautiful buildings make life better for everyone, and even the far right French president at the time agreed with him on that point too.
I would.
So this is, again, this is an interesting little thing where kind of breaking some of these right wing memes of this inability, like, the communists can't do anything beautiful ever, it's all pure ugliness. Clearly this guy had a notion of a higher ideal to strive for, and it manifested itself in something that he produced without even needing compensation. Like I said, he didn't get paid for it. He did it of his own volition because he believed in the cause. So, and this is a guy, again, he recognizes that it's, beauty is good for everyone. It's not just the elite. So that was.
I should have remembered that he did it for free before I made that Meyer quip.
Yeah.
Can't be.
Yeah. So the one other funny thing too, to kind of break the some of these like right wing memes that kind of get held, is this guy himself, despite being this Marxist true believer, he even criticized Soviet architecture, where he goes, no, like he says the worst thing about the Soviets is their architecture. He said something along those lines. And it was funny because there was a bunch of arguments in the thread surrounding this architecture that were going, oh yeah, no, like left wingers don't produce good architecture. This is, there's that whole right wing thing. And then there was Marxists responding with pictures of like suburbia, like the repetition of these cul-de-sacs over and over again. Oh yeah, here's capitalism's architecture. And then, but this guy himself is saying, well, no, the Soviets had bad architecture and he hated how the Soviet Union looked. So what this is showing us here is that there isn't this inherent notion of, oh, capitalism makes bad things, or communism makes bad things, or one makes good things, and that this isn't really consistent when you analyze these political systems as systems. This is one of these memes that both sides runs with, but they're both flawed, because what I'm taking away from this is someone that has a belief in a higher ideal, that is willing to sacrifice for it, and give their work to it despite everything else. They'll produce something that has some beauty in it, has some good in it.
Yeah.
Like even, the communists post the pictures of, capitalist suburbia, but obviously there's lots of structures in the capitalist countries that are very beautiful,
Sure.
despite all that.
Some of those buildings in Kuwait, even,
right,
they're a little gaudy. Their tastes are a little gaudy for me, but like even like the exteriors are kind of amazing, and lots of good fascist buildings, lots of good communist ones, lots of good liberal ones. I don't like Frank Gehry. Like I like this. I do enjoy a good criticism of modern architecture and some of the gross stuff they do, especially when they're deliberately spitting on tradition.
Yeah. Well, and the key in that too is, and we talked a little bit about this in Technology and Empire when we were addressing George Grant stuff, is there's a difference between the buildings that are product of modernity that have their aims directed to maximum efficiency. That's where we see it the worst. That is when it looks the worst. This is also modern architecture, but it's obvious that the building isn't directed to maximum efficiency for efficiency's sake. and part of that is probably due to him not requiring payment for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So not
Frank Lloyd
having
Wright
those.
is like the most famous architect of the last, I don't know, whatever, 100, 200 years. And
Mhm.
he was designing towards like maximum livability, I think, and working it in with the local surroundings. So
Mm.
I think, and he's rightfully, I'd say, like one of the most celebrated architects of the last while. That philosophy yields good results.
Yeah.
I don't see that
Anything
that
that sort of
philosophy would be particular to any of the, say, three main ideologies there.
yeah, and I would say anything that kind of subverts the notion of maximize efficiency ends up being maybe not always perfect, but better than what you have. And
The apartment blocks in downtown Edmonton are gruesome. They look like Soviet apartment blocks.
yeah, there's some terrible brutal. And the thing is, some brutalism actually has aesthetic quality to it. You know, some of it is kind of nice, but when it's purposed is directed at maximal efficiency, like in those apartment blocks, whether it's in downtown Edmonton or whether it's in Soviet Russia, they don't end up looking good, and they don't end up, it. Not everything has to look good. Like you might not have a society where every single building has some artistic beauty to
Yeah,
it,
but
but it
downtown,
shouldn't look bad. It shouldn't like have this tearing down of your moral character to it either.
I, everyone wants something beautiful. Maybe not the liberals so much. Beauty's the last thing on their mind.
Or beauty's subjective to them, so you can never really make a claim to
Right.
beauty if it's all subjective.
Yes, that, yeah. No, I'd say the communists have much better odds of producing beautiful buildings for the rich, or for like, if they're close enough to the central planning.
Hmm.
Um, the economic factors gotta factor in. Like, so you'd have to take a sum of all the buildings in which the average building quality, the average dwelling quality, and stuff like that. Capitalism's liberal capitalism seems to have produced no better than Soviet stuff. Think of the boom houses built around Edmonton again,
Hmm.
when they were trying to whip them up quick, and they all fall down in 20 years.
Yeah, there's some ugly, especially in or just on the outskirts of the inner city. That those sections are just awful.
Oh, yeah. What's just south of the city towards the airport? What's that town
Um,
called?
Beaumont or Leduc?
Leduc. Ugh.
Yeah, that is a greasy place.
Yeah, yeah. We should be design. It's the same way our economy ends up serving itself, or it's designed for maximum profit at the expense of people, whereas it should be geared towards the prosperity of people. Our buildings end up just serving some, these economic factors or
Yeah,
growth, when they
yeah.
should be
Does it?
focused on
Yeah,
livability.
yeah. Um, and the one thing that I like about this this communist headquarters in particular is it's something different, right? It
Hmm.
it sort of again points to a sort of future and optimism of the future um, that you don't get. Like a lot of what we have now, it doesn't really have that sort of optimism and a little bit of futurism in the mix there. And I think um, if people in our spheres had the money or the resources, one way or the other, to make something like this, like make a little, maybe just a small lounge even or whatever, and kind of put this aesthetic vision forward in their own little local area, we might not be expecting something the size and scale of this because we live in a much different era, even 40, 50 years later.
Hmm.
But these are the kinds of things that can inspire something new, and people will flock. I think a lot of people would flock to a new sort of aesthetic, regardless of whether or not they agreed politically. They just want something to inspire them
The best,
to a more optimistic future. And I think
yeah,
I
I
think
was going to
that's
say the
that's
same
from the
thing.
value.
The best
Yeah,
aesthetics are always have some sort of optimism,
right.
and that's really rare in our circles, etc. But I gotta say, I gotta take myself off the docket for designing the thing. I tried to decorate my own apartment. I mean, I'm on a budget, but oi, 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 not my talent.
Yeah, I I'm not sure my interior designing is high. It does the job, but doesn't do much more than that.
Yeah, no, mine. I don't even have any art. Like I have nothing on my walls. I look like I'm living like the Robert De Niro in Taxi. Um,
Well,
I, I,
I guess there's a place for that.
well, when
There's a
girls
period
come
for that.
over, I tell them it's a blank canvas. It just is waiting for a woman's touch.
Yeah, that's I think a lot of us are in that situation. But I'm sure there's some guys out there that have a talent that is untapped because there's not really
True.
there's infrastructure for them yet.
And you can really
But
improve your quality of life by doing a little decorating around your
oh, yeah,
place.
for sure.
Guys overlook that. But
Well,
here's
and
another one. Here's a pro tip if you're like me. If you can't make it nice, just make it clean.
yeah, living in a clean like you might people might call this gay, but living in a clean place is just way nicer.
It's not gay. It's the least gay thing ever.
I am yeah, I honestly that's
It's
my tact on
it's
that. Yeah,
extremely important, and it's free. It doesn't matter how poor you are. You can be clean.
might as well. No, I think you can take some inspiration and you can kind of cut through these dead memes that or ineffective memes about communism bad and makes everything ugly, or on the reverse side, capitalism bad makes everything ugly. And just see, well, like the architect here says, important thing was to believe that beautiful buildings can make life better for everyone. And yeah, that seems to be the common denominator between where the beauty comes out is who has the interest of producing something for a cause beyond themselves, something higher than themselves, and who has the belief in beauty, regardless of where exactly they stand on some political spectrum. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we gotta outdo these commies. I hate to be beat in any respect. Oh, a lot of our audience will be double mad because they're French commies. Well, it's a Brazilian commie, but in France, yeah. So you better get your act together, there, boys.